Hey, good afternoon and welcome to our law student Q&A. We have a dynamic panel of UB Law students to answer your questions. My name is Kristen Kelly. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions and Coordinator for Diversity Recruitment. I'll be moderating today's panel. Please feel free to raise your hand or enter your questions in the chat. We'll begin by allowing our panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with 3L Alicia Artis.
Hey everyone, I'm Alicia Artis. I'm a 3L, so this is my last semester. So I currently am interning for the Legal Aid Bureau of Buffalo in their civil unit, and I'm the secretary of BLSA, which is the Black Law Student Association on campus.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Paige Roseman. I am a JD MBA student in my last year of the program, so I'm a 3L this year. I went to UB for undergrad for psychology and business, focusing in human resources. I'm the co-director of the Buffalo Health Law Society, which started just a year ago. And I guess one of the other things I wanted to say was just kind of why I chose UB. I went here for undergrad, so I had a positive experience. Of course, the cost of UB is a benefit of coming here as well. But one of the biggest parts for me was that I intended to remain in Buffalo after I graduated. So I figured it made the most sense to utilize the networking here with attorneys that work here with the place that I wanted to start and kind of live out my legal career.
Great, thank you. Julia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Moranti. I am also a third year, graduating in May, hopefully. I am from Rochester, New York. If anyone else is from Rochester, I'm from Pittsford specifically. So pretty close, but far enough from my family, which was one of the reasons why I chose UB, that it's a nice just car ride home, but you know, no surprise visits or anything. And similar to Paige as well, I think that this program in education was incredibly cost efficient for the quality of education you get, in addition to where you are, particularly if you're interested in international law, being close to the border of Canada. There's a lot of really interesting externship opportunities there. And I am on the International Moot Court Board here at Buffalo. I compete for the Jessup Moot Court competition. So my interest in international law developed there. And I went to Geneseo for my undergraduate, which also kind of close to here. And I studied English, biology, and human development. So a very weird conglomerate of studies pre-law school, but I'm very, very happy to be here now with that background as well.
Thank you so much. Christian?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm always so paranoid. Okay, perfect. So my name is Christian Soto. I am a second year. I'm originally from Mount Pleasant, Texas. I don't think that helps anyone kind of figuring where that is. But I like to tell people it's 3 hours south of the zoo formerly owned by the Tiger King. And then I went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas. I actually was pre-med at some point in my life. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and then that changed. And then I am a part of the Human Rights Law Review. I'm a writing fellow, which is really cool. And then I'm part of the student-wide judiciary, which is pretty much like we get to, I don't want to say punish, but we get to talk to people who have done, you know, bad things on campus, and we pretty much like give them some kind of talking to or something like that. And then I chose UB because the legal community and is like, well, the UB Law School pretty much has like a foothold on the legal community here. And Buffalo being like the second biggest city in New York has a lot of access that to really important people and really important legal community members. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Teresa?
Hi, I'm a 1L at University at Buffalo. I did my undergrad here, so I'm very known, or I know a lot about the Buffalo community. I did choose this law school specifically because of its connections to the legal community in Buffalo as well in the city.
Wonderful. Thank you for your introductions. And so now we're going to open it up for questions from our audience. Again, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll call on you or enter questions in the chat. So our first question, can you tell us about your transition to the law school? If that was after your undergraduate degree or after already entering the workforce, and what was challenging for you? I think we'll start with the 3 Ls, if that's okay with you guys. So Paige, would you mind getting us started?
Sure. My transition might be a little bit different because I'm doing the dual degree JD MBA program. So I went right from undergraduate to starting the MBA program. So I had a year between law school and my undergraduate studies where I was in a graduate program. I think law school is more like intensive than the MBA. So in a way I had like a progression to law school by the MBA being a little bit more than undergrad and then law school being a little bit more than the MBA. But I think even so, the most challenging part for me was like figuring out my best routine or schedule. And that's going to be different for everybody. So figuring out like what worked best for me, when I need to be doing my reading or doing my assignments, what time of day do I feel the most productive? So it kind of took me a little bit to figure out the best like schedule for me.
Just to add on to what Paige said, I completely agree in terms of understanding like how you work best. And I think it's also okay for that to change as well. Like my first and second year, I was very much a morning worker. I would get up at 6 or 7 a.m., do my readings, my assignments, go to class, and that was the most productive for me. And then by dinner time I'd clock out and take the night off if I could. But now in my 3L year, I don't know what changed. Maybe it's the exhaustion, no idea, but now I'm very much a night worker. So finding your routine and your way that you can best serve yourself in this educational arena, I think is very important. And the transition, it's definitely just a different type of work overall. And it was something that I felt like I was prepared for coming from undergrad as an English major, because I was always reading and working with a lot of very dense texts. But this type of, even though I was used to that, this type of reading and the critical thinking that's associated with it is very different. So within that transition, I wish that I came in basically completely blind and just adopted a completely new routine instead of trying to adapt my old one. And then I found my new law school routine and then continue to adapt that schedule as needed. But otherwise, the transition is definitely something where everyone just needs to see what works for them best.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo what they said. Finding a routine is a big deal. But I graduated from undergrad in 2016. I went to Wheaton College, which is just outside of Chicago. I'm from Buffalo, so I came back. And I started working with adults and then children with disabilities in like school settings. And so transitioning back into like a school setting where I'm learning instead of being like I was a TA for a while. And then I was a nanny for a while. Like it was a big change. But I think finding one of the things that helped me was like finding people, like I know I found Julia at one point where I was like, I need to find somebody smarter than me who I can like learn from. So like along with like these dense texts and stuff like that, because that was a struggle, especially like when you first start. It's a very different type of thinking than you're used to. I had my bachelor's in biology. Like this was not, it's kind of nice knowing how many other people came from that background too. But coming into this, it's a different type of thought process. And so like making sure that you connect with other people who think differently from you that can help you like put these things together was a super big deal for me in like transitioning back into this like school and like law school type of mentality and getting my brain ready for that.
I would say like after completing my first semester as a 1L, I'm still trying to figure out my routine, and it's totally fine to like take some time and reflect back at, like, I'm still reflecting on what I want to improve and like what I want to change after my first semester. And I find it helpful to find like upperclassmen for help and reaching out to your professors, and like the community here like really wants to help you, and like they really want you to just like do well in your classes.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it is just time management. I come from a background of I was doing like my master's of public health and working at the same time. And so it helps a lot to kind of keep that same mindset in law school. Just work is work, work time is work for work and play time is for play. And you can really do like, I mean, if you really commit yourself to being disciplined and keeping the time management aspect of it, you can really do, pretty much anything you want. There are people here who are parents, and I'm over here with like the cat struggling to give them time and attention. And so really it's just, it's all relative. So I think one important thing to keep in mind is never really comparing yourself to others, because there are people who have worked in the law fields for years, other people who are attorneys from other countries and then, are in the same class as you. So you're thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing, when really, in reality, that other person has had years in the field. And so I think the most important thing is just figuring what works for you and then committing to that time management.
Thanks, Christian. I see in our chat, we have a question about balancing your studies and your commitments and other commitments. And I think you're touching on time management as a key component of being able to do that. Does anybody else have any other advice about being able to balance your studies and commitments?
Just to add to what, oh, I'm sorry, Teresa and Paige. I
No.
just saw you both unmute.
Totally.
I was just going to add that it's okay to be super bad at that at the beginning as well, because I feel like I'm still figuring that out, and I'm going to be graduating in, T-minus 4 months, and I've been here for 3 years now. And it's consistently working with yourself to find out your best routine, as we said. But then in terms of like time management specifically, every semester it's going to be different, because every semester you're going to be at a different point mentally, emotionally, physically, with classes, extracurriculars, etc. So it's always something new, and especially some professors demand certain time investments, others don't. So really just learning about yourself that particular semester, the professors you have, the classes you're in, and then just planning ahead as far as you can regarding academic and social time. I think is probably the best advice I can give, is to start early, write down what you got to do, prioritize that, and know that it's okay to be bad at it, and know that it will change every semester, every week, anything like that.
I just want to add to, I don't want the conversation about balance to like scare anybody. It's like you have plenty of time to keep in your schedule what's important to you. We all have plenty of time, whether it's we're scrolling social media and wasting time or whatever we're doing during the day. We all have plenty of time. I wanted to, it sounds silly, but like one of my things that I like to do is cook. So I wanted to make sure I kept like making homemade dinner every day, like part of my schedule. And some days you like feel super stressed that like you can't spend the hour to like make yourself dinner and clean it up and whatever, but you have the time. It gives you the mental health break. So keep what's important to you, whether that's working out or reading or relaxing or whatever it is you like to do. You have the time, so keep it in your schedule. And it gives you the break from school that we all need. So don't let it scare you that you're going to be spending 24/7, like all law school all the time. That's not how it is. So just make sure you keep other things in your life that are important to you and make you happy, part of your regular schedule.
Great. I think that's a great segue into the next question about maintaining your mental health while pursuing your legal degree. Are there any resources that UB gave you that you utilize, if comfortable answering?
I know that we do. I also was going to defer this to Paige potentially because I'm not sure how much of an intersection the health community that you had established, obviously attends to this question as well. But I know that we have like weeks of wellness. I think one is coming up. I believe we just got an email about it. So typically throughout the semester, we'll have certain weeks of wellness, and like every day there's something different. The first day they'll have lunch catered and you can meet with the dean and have lunch and just have casual conversations with your classmates. And then the next day, which is my favorite day, is there's dogs in the lobby and like pets, and that's so exciting. I always mark that in my calendar. So there's different activities like that that you can do as a student, which I know sometimes they sound silly, but sometimes you just need that outlet. But otherwise, that's my familiarity with it. And I know that there's probably way more, which I'm sure Paige or some of the other panelists can attest to as well.
I haven't utilized services during law school, but I will say, and I'm comfortable sharing, that I used like UB's counseling services when I was an undergrad here. So like their free counseling services to UB students. So that's a resource you can certainly use. I go outside of UB and have weekly therapy appointments completely unrelated to law school. It didn't like send me there or anything like that. It's just important to me personally. But I think it also just goes back to keeping things in your life that are important to you, whether that's keeping a night to hang out with friends or making a plan to see your family or whatever it is that like supports your mental health, to keep that stuff in your schedule and not let yourself get so run down in school when at the end of the day, there's more important things in life.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, on top of like the services that UB offers, a lot of the student groups offer some type of like support as well. I know, like, so our 1L year was during COVID, so we're completely on Zoom. And I was part of BOLSA, like sort of peripherally, but the cabinet like always reached out and checked up on like all of us and stuff like that. And like honestly, that was a big lifesaver during like COVID when you're so isolated and stuff like that. And I didn't know any upperclassmen to go to for questions and stuff like that. So being able to like plug into like one of the student groups, super helpful for like my mental health during this, and like finding that community and stuff like that. It's really important. It's been very important to me during law school.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. So what do you advise incoming students to do the summer before law school to prepare?
Enjoy yourself. Like literally nothing will prepare you, like prevention won't prepare you for 1L. Just like enjoy the time that you have, catch up on sleep, visit friends and family, like do whatever you want to do your summer. Because like there's nothing really you could like read or like do that will help you.
I completely agree with that. Oh, sorry, sorry, Jolie. I did at some point like try to like study for law school, which was kind of ridiculous now that I think about it. But I did like listen to some podcasts like the Law School Toolbox, just generally kind of laying out like expectations or what it's like to go through like the Socratic method, which everyone is scared of, or even just like talking to professors. So I just thought that was like really useful and actually not a waste of time. Like I did try to like read a textbook at some point anyway, but and I would definitely agree with Teresa that you really should just try to kind of focus on getting your mindset right and ready for like the challenges, because 1L is there's like no sugarcoating it. You're gonna get 200 pages of reading a week. And that's just what you have to go through. And it does get better, but I think law school in a way tries to break you down and kind of reframe how your mind thinks and works. And I think that's just part of the process.
Yeah, I completely agree with both Christian and Teresa. Do absolutely nothing. The school and other schools might send, oh, here's some like suggested reading. I bought all of those books, did not open one of them, and I'm still here. And thank God that I didn't, because I'm very grateful that I was able to, sleep and enjoy time with my family before truly investing myself in this education, because yes, law school is demanding, and that's the nature of the curriculum, and that's at this school and at every other school as well, just in regards to how much you will invest yourself temporally, mentally, emotionally. And something that Christian mentioned as well is that how your thinking is going to be reframed, which I think also relates to another student asked. Alexandra had asked how to better prepare for the LSAT, and I think that those two tie in together is to embrace the different way that your brain wants to think almost. And there have been, I remember that my LSAT tutor had shared with me a study that showed someone's brain map right before they entered law school and then after they had graduated. And the connections in their brain, or whatever all that science stuff was, how that was reconfigured and reformed was remarkable to me. And the way in which law school teaches you to critically think and literally just change the way that your brain connects was so incredible. And I feel that in myself now, 3 years later, so much, just in my everyday life. So I would definitely just embrace that different form of thinking and allow yourself the space to do that the summer before law school, just in terms of being mindful and understanding yourself just as a person, because then you're going to become a student and you want that to follow suit as well. So yeah, before law school, do nothing. And then for the LSAT, just kind of embrace that different way of thinking.
Yeah, I really agree with what they were saying. Like don't psych yourself out beforehand either. I think one of the things that I wish I had done beforehand was not like freak out and be like, okay, like you're gonna set yourself up and like worry about setting myself up. Especially like when you're a first gen law student and you don't know how that works, how like law school works in general. I knew that people got cold called and I was like, okay, so I'm never gonna get cold called and be unprepared. That will happen. You will get it wrong sometimes, and it's okay. Nobody thinks less of you. There will be times when you just go blank or you just really don't understand what the question is, and it's okay. And I think I spent a lot of time, I was like working beforehand, but I spent a lot of time worrying about like how that was going to be and being worried about like not knowing what's going on because I don't know. And I didn't know any lawyers before I started law school. So like, don't freak out. There's a lot of first gen law students here who don't know what's going on, and people who do have lawyers in their family or friends also don't know what's going on. So like just don't like spend the time being anxious or worried about it either. Like do things that are relaxing. Your brain is going to have to like is going to be overworked for a while. So like give it a rest beforehand so that it's ready.
Thank you so much. And so going back to, does anybody have any tips about preparing for the LSAT?
So
I'll just
I would
briefly
say,
oh,
go ahead, Paige.
I just put it in the chat with like a link in the chat too. I did the UB like LSAT workshop run by Aaron Decker before I started studying for the LSAT. So I like barely even knew what the LSAT was. And I was like, I'm gonna go, I'll take the practice test and see like where my starting point is, like what's my like base score without even like knowing what this test is. And then Aaron gives like, you take the practice test and then it's graded while you're there, and then you get your score, and then you go over like tips on like how to start tackling the LSAT and like studying for it. And I ended up hiring Erin, who was running the workshop, as like my private tutor. That was just what I wanted to do for me. It kept me disciplined, having someone to like report to study, because I was studying for it during my last semester. Yeah, during my last semester of undergrad, and I was taking like 21 credits. So I knew I wouldn't like do it on my own. So that was what worked for me, but obviously that's not like financially feasible or not what everyone wants to do. But I think it helped me with like discipline. So if you can find different LSAT, like whether it gives you like a schedule or it's an online thing or whatever you want to use, or you want to use books and do your own thing, that's totally fine. Just find a system that works for you. But I highly suggest attending like the workshop, even if it's just for getting like tips and tricks and you don't want to use it as like your cold diagnostic.
So I didn't use any of those. Like I just had the books, and I did the one that comes with the LSAT, the Khan Academy, I think it's called. I did those, and I think one of like the biggest deals was like, so my first time taking it was super duper stressful. Like not just like it's the LSAT, but they put the wrong address on our tickets, so everybody went to the wrong place. So it was like super stressful. And the second time I took it, my score went up by like 10 points because I knew where I was going. I was comfortable. I wasn't like nearly as nervous. So I think like if I did things a little bit differently, one, I would go to the address beforehand to see where I'm supposed to go and make sure it was right. But also just like, don't beat yourself up about it. I thought that my scores were super low, and then I found out they were not. I feel like I just didn't understand what was like a low or a high score. It's okay, because LSAT isn't the only thing that you're that gets you into law school. But find something that works for you. I had a cousin who's smart and ridiculous who decided that he would take the LSAT with me. And he didn't go to law school, he's an engineer, and was like, you know, it would be fun like if we studied together. So like if you have a friend who's going to law school too and thinking about it and thinking about taking the LSAT, like I know personally I work really well in like with somebody else rather than just like studying on my own, because I get like these myopic views of things, and I need somebody else to pull me out of that to be able to see a bigger picture. So like if you're like me, finding someone else who would like to study with you and talk about the problems together, that worked really well for me.
Great, thank you so much. So there's a question here. I can also help answer some of these too. Is it possible to work as a physical therapist and be a law student simultaneously at some point during law school? Second question, previously, having a previous career help me in the admissions process? Or is it just determined by LSAT and GPA?
For the working thing, I would say not full time, and like even part time, it's pretty stretched. Like I'm a student. I'm actually like working with Ben and Kristen. I work as a student assistant for like 2 days out of the week, and like what is it, like 7 hours like maybe that I do, and that's me keeping a really strict time management. Like I really have to keep a strict regimen. So I would say if I could afford it, I would definitely not work during the semester. Unfortunately, like I have to, but like I would say I think like the ABA recommends like less than 20 hours a week to make it manageable. So, but I find like even my 10 hours that I do like with other things is something that I have difficulty with sometimes.
I think that 1L year, just from my own experience and echoing what Teresa said, it is very hard to work 1L just because it is, and I also articulated this in the chat as well as a response to the question, but your 1L year is time intensive for everyone, even the person who's like the best ever at time management, organization, or anything in between. It is just a voluminous, comprehensive type of work. Here or anywhere, it is just the type of academia that you are entering into. And it's an incredible field to enter into. And it is a blessing and a curse for that reason. And the latter being that it does take a lot of time and investment. So 1L year, I did not work. I wanted to work, and you can 20 hours a week. That's what you're permitted to complete. And I think I got a waitressing job my second semester for just like Saturday nights, like the Saturday night dinner shift. And even that, I only did it a couple times and I was like, wow, even if this Saturday night, I'm not planning on, doing my reading or anything, just that sleep is so critical that I cannot work at this point in time. So my 1L year, I didn't essentially. And then by the time it was 2L and 3L, I got a job in-house at National Fuel, and I worked there, I think like 12 hours a week or 12 to 16. And that is way more manageable for me now that I can understand my priorities, choose my classes appropriately, and then make that time to work. But yeah, I highly advise not doing it your 1L year just because the transition, as we had talked about before, is definitely a learning curve, and the work itself is just pretty dense naturally. But then as you progress into your upperclassmen years, working is definitely way more possible.
I would agree with all of that. I was a nanny because I figured it would give me more time to study for the LSAT before I went to school. Went to law school. So I stayed on with them 2 days a week through until actually this past semester. And my 1L year, that was really hard, even though like when the kids were sleeping, I would like study. So I like came with books, and while they took their 1.5 hour long nap, I would sneak in some work. That was really hard. So I mean, I had to, but like if you can swing it, I wouldn't do it. Just because like that made a lot of things a lot harder. And it made it a lot harder to like get reading and work done just to like sit, because reading in law school takes more time. It just takes more time. Sometimes you have to read a case 3 times to figure out what's going on. So it just is very time consuming, and your brain hurts afterwards, and maybe you don't have the patience to deal with the 2-year-old afterwards. Or people you're serving at a restaurant or anything like that. So if you can swing it, I would say don't do it, at least for your first year. My second year and this year, not that bad. But my 1L year, it even like with COVID, so there was nowhere else to go or like fun things to do, it was hard. So if at least for your 1L year, if you can swing working like way less or not at all, I would totally do it.
I definitely want to echo all those sentiments. And then I did end up working like 15 to 20 hours a week during 1L. And like I think like everyone said, it was energy draining. Like I would work on the weekends, like 6 hours a day. And of course we have Friday off, so there are no classes on Friday for 1Ls. And if you choose to have a class on Friday, like in 2L and 3L, that's up to you. But and I would just say like I guess speaking directly to Jesus, working as a physical therapist, I think it's also very important to think about how intensive the job is. I got very lucky that I was doing contact tracing from like home. And so I didn't have to go anywhere. I pretty much had a lot of breaks, so I could do like a little bit of work in between. And I think I had a lot of flexibility as well. I'm not sure that you would have that as a physical therapist in terms of like asking for days off or when the more stressful weeks come, because professors all somehow decide to give the same assignments to the same due dates and stuff like that. I think that's like a pretty tall task. And I wouldn't recommend it. I do think it's possible to work, just kind of depending on how intense the job is.
Yeah, my job might be an outlier in this situation because I am a work study student, and Kristen and Ben do understand like what's going on with my life, and they're very flex. So
I'll just kind of echo a little bit of what Christian said, that if you're in a situation where you have to work, which was my situation, I mean, we have bills and expenses to pay. It's not feasible for everybody to not work. Although if you do have that feasibility, I would also suggest like tailoring back or not working, but it's not to scare you if that's your situation where you have to. That was my situation too. I worked 15 hours a week my first year, and then definitely easier to do that in second and third year. I agree. It can be difficult to manage at times, but it all goes back to time management and getting the schedule for yourself that works best for you to fit in the things that you need to do. At the end, I don't know, at the end of the day, there's enough hours in the day to do the things that you need to do, and to fit in things that you love to do. So it was fine for me. Was it as enjoyable? Did I get to relax as much as other people? No. But I had to do it to make it work. And second and third year is definitely easier to work. And now I'm working 20 hours a week since my second year.
Thank
Just
you.
to add briefly, oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Kristen.
go ahead, Julia.
Oh, I was just gonna add, very like related to this and then semi-transitioning out, is that if financial concerns are obviously like at the forefront of a lot of students' minds, I think you can only, if you are offered a scholarship from UB, you know, within your admissions packet, the timing for you to negotiate that scholarship, if you do want to potentially you know, prove that your matriculation is like worth a higher investment from UB or anything along those lines, the time to do that is your, you know, before your 1L year, like basically right now, because otherwise you can't do it after the fact, like as a 2L or a 3L, if you're doing super well in classes and you want to try to get a larger scholarship from UB, because the pool of money for each class is only like from the get-go sending out admissions, that is the pool of money that is like concrete. So if you do want to negotiate, the time is essentially now. So relating to what Paige was saying, if you know, have no choice but to work to obviously support yourself, a lot of that maybe financial burden can be taken off if you do choose to negotiate your scholarship at this point in time. And there's actually a blog post, I think I just sent it in the chat, for how to do that and who to contact about it to hopefully relieve some of that financial pressure as well. So then hopefully you won't have to work as much.
Thank you, Julia. And to just discuss about from the admissions perspective regarding how it's viewed to have a previous career. We absolutely have students from all different backgrounds that are making you know, career changes. It's certainly going to be something that is interesting and sets you apart in the admissions process. We practice a holistic review. So we really are looking at everything in your application. I think it would be important to make sure that in your personal statement, that at some point in your personal statement that you are clearly describing why you're choosing to pursue a law degree, especially when you know, the two don't have a very obvious connection. Physical therapy doesn't have a specific obvious connection to law, but you know, you might be able to draw some connections for us within your personal statement. So yes, we will take that into consideration. And your LSAT and your GP are still very important components of the application process. But like I said, having another profession is not going to negatively impact you at all. And so there is a question here. It looks like Teresa did answer it within the chat. So if you have submitted some questions in the chat, keep an eye out. Some of our panelists are doing double duty and answering those questions and providing resources in the chat as well as verbally. But for those who maybe did not happen to see this exchange, Teresa, you mentioned that you attended UB in undergrad. What are some connections that you made at UB to help you prepare for the LSAT and applying for law school? And I think Paige as well is an UB undergrad alum.
Yeah. So again, my situation might be like an outlier because I spent 2 out of my 3 years of undergrad virtual. So I didn't really foster any relationships with my professors, or law school honestly wasn't even on my mind until I left school. But I will say, like, within the time that I was considering law school, I did reach out to the admission staff and like create a connection with them and really discuss my options with them. In addition to that, for the LSAT workshop, UB is really great with providing those resources. I personally did not use them because I was not looking. Very stupid of me. But there are commercial study guides, and even if like self-study aids are great too.
I'll just add a little bit to it because my experience was a little different. I knew my junior year of undergrad that I was for sure applying to law school. So to like relieve anxiety, whatever I was nervous about going and that I was making the right choice, I decided to take some of the undergrad law classes. They were brand new. My senior year, they had just come out with the undergrad law minor. So I completed the minor in my senior year. So I took the 6 classes, and it's the same faculty that teach in the law school. So it gave me an introduction to them in like a less intimidating environment because the content is different, the requirements are different, but you get to meet them, and it kind of helped me at least relieve the stress of like, okay, these aren't like some like different people, or I don't know how to explain what I mean, but I don't know, law school has this like image of being like this very scary, intimidating place, and that's not how my experience has been. And it helped me feel better taking a couple of classes with those same people that I would have again, and a couple of them I have had twice. So it was just a nice experience. If you do go here and you do go to UB, even if you just take one as an elective to see what it's like, I would suggest it.
Great. And just following off of that sentiment about getting to know the professors, how accessible are the law professors here, and have any of you had any difficulty meeting with professors?
I've never had difficulty meeting with them. There's a few professors that I've learned that are always on call. They'll be answering their emails like every 20 minutes, and like that's great. A lot of them do open office hours, and you could just walk in whenever and speak to them. Sometimes I don't really talk about my class because it gets kind of boring. So I ask them about their research because a lot of our professors do a lot of great work here. So it's very interesting to see what they're doing outside of class.
Yeah, I've never had any issues with professors. They're usually very open to email exchanges and just meeting in person. I also wanted to mention, like, you have like the teaching assistants. So usually there's like 2 or 3 per class, and like they're pretty much like, if you think about it, I guess, like your ambassador towards the professor. So like you can talk to them about issues you're having or things you're really confused about, and they can convey that to the professor. So like if you're kind of scared of talking about the issue or the thing to the professor, they can advocate on your behalf. And I think it's really just important to talk to people who have succeeded in that class, because they know, they clearly know what they're doing. And they're very good usually about pointing out things that may help you get a better grade in class. And especially after midterms, they're really good about going with, they're really good about reviewing the midterm with you and telling you like what they did differently.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Teresa, this question is for you. How would you recommend work study?
I would honestly, if every single 1L could get work study, hell yeah, do that. Work study is great. Like especially working for the admissions office, like you guys are really great with like giving me the hours and like understanding what's like going on in my own life. But I understand that there's other work studies here at UB that aren't like office related. So Handshake is really good. So if you log on to UB Handshake, there's a lot of work study positions that you can scroll through and apply for. So yeah.
Thank you. And I swear I'm not forcing her to say that. So moving ahead, there's a question about have you completed internships, externships? If so, how have they helped you prepare for life after law school?
I did briefly answer this in the chat as well in regards to the internships and externships. UB has great opportunities for just experiential learning generally, and I would argue that I probably learned more in those experiential, like tangible activities in maybe like a couple weeks doing that real world experience rather than being, you know, in a classroom and textbooks and whatnot. And that's just personally my style of learning. I do a lot better when I am, you know, out doing real like field work and actual cases and etc. And that might not be the case for everyone, but for me, that learning was absolutely invaluable. And I think the first experiential thing I did was for clinics. So we have several types of clinics here where you have real clients, real caseload, you work under the supervision of your professor who is an attorney. So everything is vetted. You know, there's not a ton of pressure on you, obviously, but there's a good amount of pressure to make you, you know, want to learn and do it correctly, obviously. But I did the women's rights and domestic violence, family violence clinic. And there I had several clients. I was with them for about a year. And then I also externed with a judge my spring semester. And that was so incredible. And I think probably confirmed my interest in working in the court system as well. So you don't only get to learn a ton about the material itself, but also for post school, you get to learn about maybe what direction you want to go in, either positively or negatively, because as much as I loved the work that I did in my clinic, I know that family law is not like a long-term investment for me. I loved doing it for the year, but then it told me, wow, this is super heavy. I am not someone who can handle this type of work. And then working with the judge, I was like, oh, wow, this is really awesome. I love this. And I think that those experiences led me to where I am now, working at National Fuel. And then Destiny had just asked a related question about completing an internship before applying to law school. I personally did not. I didn't even know that I wanted to go to law school until I was accepted, and I was like, oh, okay, this seems like maybe a good idea. I don't know. And I think that maybe that's largely recommended to students to ensure that you are investing the next 3 years of your life into something that you really love and care about. I did not confirm that for myself before coming here, but it worked out that now I do love it anyway. So I'm not sure it's a requisite for admission exactly, but I think it's very helpful on a personal level to know that you are doing this for yourself and you're going to love it and enjoy it. And this is the career that you want to take on.
I'll just add a little bit to that. I did 2 internships before coming to law school. I did once a week. I like volunteered essentially. I got credit for it for my undergrad. But I worked in the district attorney's office, the Buffalo City DA's office. I want nothing to do with criminal law. I knew that going in, but I just wanted to see what it was like being in court. Confirmed not for me, but I loved it. I thought it was so interesting. I loved going every day. And then I did an internship right before, I'm trying to think. It was right before starting my MBA. I was like a secretary at Hodgson Russ. It's an internship that they provide to undergrads. where essentially like the attorneys, secretaries, they take a lot of vacation over the summer. So they have undergrads come in and kind of serve as replacements. So I got to meet a bunch of different attorneys in that office, learn about all the different practice areas by working with different attorneys. None of the work was like legal at all. It was administrative. It was mailing stuff, printing stuff, whatever they needed. But it gave me the opportunity to see like what being inside a law firm's like. So I did those two things, again, not necessary, but helped relieve some of my anxiety that I was making the right choice in coming to law school. And then since I've been in law school, I did an externship with Kaleida Health in their labor relations department, because I had known before coming to law school that I was pretty confident I would be doing employment and labor law. So I did that. I went in-house like Julia and went to Univera Healthcare for my first summer and in all of last year. And then this past summer, I was at Bond Shannon King, which is where I am right now, and will be after graduation. So internships, externships, pro bono hours, you can all get through the externship process.
Yeah. So I did not do anything before law school, but at my internship at Legal Aid, they took undergrads and people who were applying to law school as well. So Teresa, in your class, there's Meredith Waddle, who spent the whole, like, I think it was like 6 or 7 months before she started law school there. But I think working there was awesome for me. I started after my 1L year and I just sort of stayed. And they let me try out lots of different things. So I've been to like the IDV court, which is the Integrated Domestic Violence Court, and worked on those cases. Legal Aid tends to, because we don't have a VAWA grant, we tend to represent the perpetrators of domestic violence, which is a very interesting like thing to learn about. I've done mental hygiene law. I spent last summer doing eviction defense. I've helped with appeals, and like being able to jump around. Oh, and divorces. Divorces was the biggest one that I did. Being able to like jump around and do all of those things has definitely helped. I don't think a lot of internships let you jump around like that. So if you have an internship that like keeps you in one spot, I would say check out other internships, figure out what you actually love to do. I like that Legal Aid let me jump around and try lots of things out. And I think one of the biggest things that was super helpful to me, I thought I would like litigation, but I wasn't really sure. But you get, oh no, all of a sudden I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically like a probationary license to practice. So I got that, and I spent all last summer representing people like almost by myself. Just a lawyer from Legal Aid had to be in the room, but they didn't know anything about the case. I did. I like represented people all summer, and I loved it. I loved arguing and I loved negotiating. And I didn't think I would love it as much as I do. So it was like nice to know that that was like the right. Thank you. It's a practice order. Thank you, Julia. I had a practice order. But it's like nice to know that that's what I want to do. And like, I kind of love that like fast paced stuff. And I thought I liked divorces, but they drag on a little too long for me. So like learning what you like and what type of thing you like. So I like these fast paced summary, but like these summary hearings, like they're not long. I get through these things fast and I love it. Like that's the type of thing I like to do. And that's not something I would have even thought about doing if they hadn't like hired me for that position over the summer. So I would say like do internships, but like find different things to do, like try out everything, because you don't know what you're gonna like.
Okay, well, that brings us to right up to our time limit. I want to say thank you to our panelists for sharing their insight and experiences with applying and preparing for law school, and you know, living through it. We want to thank you all for participating in our virtual open house, and we hope to see you tomorrow at noon for the virtual JD info session. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for taking the time to come on.
Of course.